Module 3, Mechanical Drawing. Today we're going to work on this mechanical drawing located over here on the right hand side. If you click on this drawing, it'll open up the PDF and you can print that out. I also have a title block that you'll need to use to draw that. So what we'll do is we'll get started here by clicking on this B-size mechanical title block and we'll say open. And what will pop up on our screen is the title block drawing. And as you can see, we're in paper space because we can see the paper on the screen. I'm going to also check my interface here. We want to make sure that we have the menu bar on. If I turn it off, the menu bar disappears. If I say show menu bar, we'll get these commands across the top. And then across the bottom, I'm going to have it set up for polar and OSnap. I'm also going to set dynamic input to be on, which means the input line will follow the cursor, and I'm also going to show my line weights. If we look at the layer, we're set up on the object line layer, and we'll get started now. We're going to start this drawing by drawing it in model space, and so we're on the layout tab. We're going to click on the word model here, and that'll bring us into model space. Now if your screen is black, that's just because you haven't set up the options for the background color of the screen to be white. So it's okay if it's black. I'm just going to continue on with this color the way it is. If we look at the exercise, it says to draw this key plate, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw the left side, the front view, and then we're going to draw a left side view, and then we're going to use some modify commands to create this trimmed space out here. Then we're going to dimension the object. So getting back to AutoCAD here, I'm going to start off on the object line layer, and I'll start off by saying line, and I can just pick anywhere on the screen to start this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. Notice that since my polar button is on, that I'm tracking, that's what this green line is, and I'm going to use a direct distance command, which will be 5.0, and that will draw a 5-inch line in that direction. And then I'll track this way. Again, you'll see the green tracking line, and that distance is going to be 3.0, and I'll go north 5.0, and then I'll bring the cursor back to the beginning. Now my O-snaps are on, so I am getting an O-snap for the end point, which is fine. I'll click that point, I'll hit escape. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to locate the 4 holes in the corners of the drawing, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to locate those a 1/2 inch away from the edge. There's a number of ways to do it, but the easiest way is to use offset, and I'll set up the distance as 0.5. Once I've typed in 0.5, I can then get this pick box, which is this little square. I'll select this line, and I'll select this side. It's modal, so that means I can continue to use that 1/2 inch offset, and it's line side, line side. I'll then select the circle, and I'm going to use center diameter, and the diameter on that is 1/4 inch. And since my O-snaps are active, I can check. I should have intersection active, which it is. And so when I glide over to the intersection of these two lines, I'll get an O-snap, and I'll click that, and then it asks me for the diameter, which will be 0.25. I'll then create the other 3. I can right mouse click, I can say repeat circle, click, enter. Right mouse click, repeat circle, click, enter. Right mouse click, repeat circle, click, enter. And it remembers the value of 0.5 for those diameters. I can then erase these construction lines, and notice how I select with the green box. That means it'll select whatever it touches. It doesn't have to be entirely within that box, and I'll hit the erase command. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fillet these edges here, and the fillet is also 0.5, but it's a 0.5 radius, and so you have to differentiate between diameters and radius when you do these drawings. I'm going to select the fillet command. If you don't see the fillet, it might be buried under here, and so the last command is on the top. And you'll also notice that there's this little down arrow, and if you hit the down arrow on the keyboard, it allows me to select radius, and the down arrow I'm talking about is this right here. And those are your options. What they're doing is they're moving them to a heads-up display, moving them away from getting you to look down here at the command line and getting your focus to be on the drawing where you're drawing. And so I'm going to program in the radius as 0.5, and then I'll get the pick box and I'll select this line and this line. Right mouse click, repeat fillet, this line this line, right mouse click, repeat fillet, this line, right mouse click, repeat fillet, this line, and this line. Next thing I'm going to do is locate that hole in the center, and that hole is located 1.5 inches off to the side. And so what I'll do is I'll say offset. The distance is going to be 1.5. I'll select the line and the side, and then it's going to be at the midpoint or 2.5 inches up. And so I'll say offset, and I'll program the distance as 2.5. Select the line, select the side, select circle, select this point. Be aware of whether it's saying diameter or radius. Since it's saying diameter, I'm going to type in the diameter of 1.5. I'm going to erase these construction lines, and then I'm going to draw the keyway component here. And I'm going to use my tracking in my polar tracking at that. And so I want to right click on my polar tracking, and I want to set that for 15 degrees. I like 15 degrees because it's kind of like a drafting board. And what I'll do is I'll click on a line. I'll acquire the center. Now notice I'm not getting the center. What I can do is I can right click on OSNAP and I can enable center, and now I can come back here while I'm still in the line command and click a center point. If I bring this out 180 degrees, it's a 60 degree opening, and so I'll take 30 degrees from that, and so I'll track this up till it says 150, and I'll get a green track line, and I can draw it at any length like that. That's left mouse button. I'll hit escape, line from this point here, bring it over, bring it down, track until I get 210. Click, hit escape, and now we'll trim. Trim is the greatest command. We can just go say trim. One of the options is to hit enter to select all entities as cutting lines, and that's what we want. So I'm going to hit enter, and then I'm going to click on the things I don't want. So I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, don't want that, that, and that. And so that trims out my keyway. And next thing I'm going to do is to create center lines on a centerline layer. So I'm going to enable the centerline layer by clicking on CEN. I'm going to go over to the annotation tab, and I'm going to select center mark. Now we may have to adjust the center mark so that they look like little X's like they are on the PDF. And what I mean by that is, if I come back here, we look at that, you notice how they're kind of like an X marks the spot. And that's a component of the dim send value. So we'll come back to our drawings here and we'll see what we get. Here's where I get the center mark. So I'll click on center mark and I'll click on the edge of this circle. And we're good. It's all set. I get a nice clean X marks the spot, so there's no adjustment needed. I'll click on this one, center mark. You have to click on the actual geometry. It won't work if I go here and I click here. This is not going to work. I have to click on the blueness here and here. Okay, we've got our drawing created. We've got our center marks in here. Now let's check it and see how our dimensions come out. Also, we're going to work on a dimension layer here. And so I'm going to switch over to my layer, dim. And I'm going to make this dimension layer a little darker so it's easier to see against the white background. So I'm going to click on the light green square and I'm going to darken it up. Now you don't have to do this, but it just makes it easier to see. And then I'm going to go back to my annotation tab and I'm going to select dimension. And I'm going to dimension from this endpoint to this endpoint, and I'll drop that dimension in right here. Trouble, 2.99. Now I should be at 3.0, and it's probably based on the way that I acquired this endpoint right here. Not exactly sure, but I'm going to delete this and see if I can do this again, if I can get my proper dimension in. There we go, 3 inches. I'll also then go and dimension some of these other marks. I'm going to just check my OSNAP that I've set for endpoint. So I'll say dimension, and I will dimension to the center. And then I will dimension a vertical dimension for this. Angular dimension. Select the 2 lines and bring that out. That's going to be 60 degrees. And then I'll dimension the 5-inch. A linear dimension. And you may say, hey, there's a problem here. These dimensions are 2 decimal places. They're supposed to be 3 decimal places. Well, there's a couple of ways that we can fix that. One way is we could click on the dimension and we can right click on it and we can change that value. And so if I click on this 5-inch dimension and then I right click, I can change the precision to 3 decimal places. And that's a nice way to do them individually. And so let's just do them individually for this time. Precision, 3 decimal places. Click on it, right click on it. Precision, 3 decimal places. Click on it, right click on it. Precision, 3 decimal places. Alright, so we've got the front view almost completed. We want to put in a couple of more dimensions. We want to put in this radius dimension here and this diameter dimension here, and we also have another diameter here. And there's a few different ways that we can do this. One, we'll go over to the dimension and we'll use the radius command. And so I'll say radius, I'll click on this arc here, I'll bring this out. Now notice that it's kind of goofing around with me. It's giving me a double center mark. And for this exercise, that's acceptable. I can work with that at this time. And so we'll just leave that as it is. If we wanted to get rid of that, we go into the dimension style and disable the center mark. But for right now, we're fine with that. I'll also go in and create another one. In fact, I think I am going to disable it. I'm going to come in here to my dimension style. I'm going to say modify, and on the center marks here, I'm going to say none on this second one. Say OK, and I'll close it, and you'll see it disappears. And now it's a cleaner drawing. When I go through and I do this diameter, I won't get a double center mark on this either. So I'll bring that out. It's 1.50. I need to increase the tolerance on this, and so if I click on it, right click, precision, 3, click on this one, right click, precision, 3, hit escape. And I've got a couple other ones that I can do, but I think I'll leave those for you guys to go and work on. One last dimension that I want to get is this 1/4 inch by 4. And if I put in a dimension, it does allow me to put text in. And so I just want to show you that. If I say dimension, and I say I want this dimensioned, and it comes out, it's coming in at 1/4 inch. And one of the options in here, before I place it, is to hit the downward arrow and to say M text. And so I can come in here after it acquires that value for the dimension, and then I can type in ×4. And then I can hit escape. Yes, I want to keep my changes, and I can place that. So here's the basic drawing, okay? And now I'm going to put it on the title block. And so I'll click on the ANSIB title block. I'll double click in the viewport to make sure that viewport's active, and then I'll locate that. I'll set the scale. You can set that scale at 1:1. And if you can see, I've got this one dimension that's not quite fitting in there. I can click on it and I can move it with a grip and get it so that I can see that. And then I'll hit escape. Okay, let's fill out the title block. If I double click on the outside of the viewport here, I can click on title, double click on that. I can say key plate. And this will be lab number 3B. And we're also going to want to put our name on it. So I'll double click on that. You'll notice that I missed the name part here. And I'm not sure. I think I can just delete that out. Yes. Now click on the screen. Okay, we're going to save this as XX Lab 3B, I believe. Let's take a look at it and see what I've said here. XX Project 3-1. I'll update this and we'll call it Lab 3B. And so my website should be right by the time we get this. And so we'll say File, Save As, and I'm going to save this to my desktop, and I'll change the name from my title block to JC, which is my initials, dash Lab 3B. If you're using an older version of AutoCAD, you can save it as an older version. If you're using the 2013, you have to make sure you bring it down to a version that I can read, like this 2010. So I can grade it. We'll say save, and then we'll put that in the Dropbox. That's the end of this lesson.